The mall was alive with the usual Saturday buzz, laughter echoing off marble floors, the smell of coffee drifting from the cafe, shoppers weaving between stores with bags in hand. For most people, it was just another weekend, another chance to browse the newest collections or hunt for sales. But for one teenager, this mall trip was not about trends or entertainment. Jordan Carter walked with quiet purpose, his steps steady, his eyes focused. At 16, he carried himself with a maturity that made him stand out from other kids his age. He wasn't there to waste time or hang around aimlessly. No, he had been saving for weeks, slipping bills and coins into a small envelope hidden in his drawer, determined to buy a birthday gift for the person he loved most in the world, his mother. She had always sacrificed for him. Even when money was tight, she somehow managed to put food on the table, keep their clothes clean, and smile at the end of exhausting days. Jordan needed to do something special for her this year, something that would show her how much she meant to him. And today, he finally had enough. As he passed the glittering storefronts, his heart raced with anticipation. He paused in front of a jewelry store. Behind the glass, a delicate silver bracelet caught his eye. It wasn't extravagant, but it sparkled under the bright lights. Simple yet beautiful, just like his mom. He pressed his hand against the glass for a moment, imagining the joy on her face when she opened the box. He smiled. This is it. But as Jordan stepped into the store, he felt it. The shift, the way the air seemed to change the moment he crossed the threshold. The way two store clerks, both middle-aged women with polished smiles, suddenly stiffened. Their eyes darted to him, scanning him up and down as if his very presence was suspicious. One of them even leaned toward the other and whispered something, her lips curling with the faintest smirk. Jordan noticed. He always noticed, but he tried to brush it off. He told himself he wouldn't let anything spoil this moment. He approached the counter, politely asked to see the bracelet, and waited as the clerk reluctantly fetched it. She handled him with the kind of brittle politeness that wasn't polite at all. Her eyes sharp, her tone clipped. Still, Jordan held his head high. He knew why they looked at him like that. His skin, his age, his hoodie. To them, he wasn't a customer. He was a threat. As the clerk placed the bracelet in front of him, Jordan's hands trembled slightly, not because he was guilty of anything, but because he hated the way her gaze bore into him, like she was daring him to prove her suspicions right. He gently touched the bracelet, smiled again, and said, "I'll take it." But just as he reached into his pocket for his wallet, chaos erupted behind him. A woman screamed, loud, sharp, the kind of scream that turned heads instantly. "My purse!" she shouted. "Someone stole my purse." The database store froze. Shoppers gasped. Heads swiveled. Panic rippled through the crowd outside. And then, like clockwork, suspicion snapped right back to Jordan. The clerk's eyes widened. She stepped back. The other clerk muttered something into her phone. Jordan caught the words security and theft. Jordan blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" "I didn't." But before he could finish, two police officers burst into the store. Their uniforms commanded attention, their boots heavy against the polished floor. Without hesitation, one of them pointed straight at Jordan. "There, that's him!" the clerk shouted, her voice trembling with false certainty. Jordan's heart stopped. The officers didn't ask questions. They didn't look around. They didn't even glance at the crying woman clutching her empty handbag outside. No, their eyes locked on Jordan, as if the case was already closed. "Hands where I can see them." "Kid!" barked one officer, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. Jordan's hands shot up instinctively. "I didn't do anything." The second officer stepped forward, grabbing Jordan's arm with such force it made him stumble. "Save it for the station. We've heard it all before." Shoppers crowded around, phones lifted, recording every second. Some whispered. Others shook their heads in pity. A few smirked as if enjoying the spectacle. To them, Jordan wasn't a boy buying a gift for his mother. He was entertainment. "I swear I didn't steal anything," Jordan pleaded, panic rising in his chest. I was just buying." But his words were drowned out by the officer shoving him against the glass wall. The cold surface pressed against his cheek, the weight of their hands pinning him in place. The mall had gone silent now, except for the hum of recording, phones and the faint sobs of the woman who'd lost her purse. Jordan's eyes darted around the crowd, desperate for someone to speak up, to defend him, to say they saw what really happened. But no one stepped forward, not yet. All he saw were faces, strangers staring at him like he was already guilty. And deep inside, Jordan felt something heavy settle in his chest, the crushing weight of being judged. Not for what he had done, but for what he looked like. The humiliation burned hotter than the officer's grip on his arms. And as he struggled to breathe under the glare of flashing phones and accusing eyes, Jordan couldn't have known that this moment, this cruel, unjust arrest, would shatter more than just his afternoon. It would shatter the image everyone had of him. Because what no one realized was that Jordan wasn't just any kid. He was the son of the city's most powerful police captain. And the truth was about to change everything. The world felt blurry to Jordan, his cheek still pressed against the glass wall, his breath fogging the polished surface. Every second dragged like an eternity, the pressure on his arms digging into his skin. Around him the crowd murmured, the buzz of phone cameras recording his humiliation spreading like wildfire. One thought consumed him, why won't anyone listen? "Stop resisting!" One of the officers barked, his voice echoing through the store. "I'm not resisting," Jordan cried, his voice breaking. His chest tightened with fear, but also with rage. A rage he didn't know how to express without making everything worse. The officer holding him sneered. They always say that. The words sliced deeper than the grip on his arm. They always say that. To these men, Jordan wasn't an individual. He wasn't a son, a student, a boy with dreams. He was a category, a statistic, a face they'd already judged. The second officer, taller, more aggressive, leaned close, his voice a low growl. "Kid, the sooner you confess, the easier this'll be for you." Jordan's throat burned. "I didn't steal anything. I was just—" "Enough!" the officer snapped, shoving him back harder. The glass rattled under his weight, and gasps rose from the crowd. From the corner of his eye, Jordan saw a group of bystanders recording with wide eyes, whispering to each other. Some shook their heads in disgust at the officers. Others muttered, "Probably did it." They wouldn't arrest him for nothing. The shame was unbearable. Then came the sound that shifted everything, the crackle of a police radio. One of the officers grabbed his mic and spoke into it quickly. "Suspect apprehended at Westfield Mall. Young male, black shirt, jeans. We're taking him in." There was a pause. A crackle. Then the dispatcher's voice came through, sharp, urgent, and slightly panicked. "Repeat that description." The officer frowned. 16-year-old male, black shirt, jeans, short hair. Currently detained. Another pause. Then a new voice, heavier, deeper, cut through the radio. The kind of voice that made even seasoned officers straighten up. "This is Captain Carter. Did I just hear you have a 16-year-old boy detained at Westfield Mall?" The officer stiffened. "Yes, sir." Another pause. The weight of silence filled the store. And then came the words that made the officer's stomach drop. "What's his name?" The taller officer looked at Jordan, still pinned against the glass. "Kid, what's your name?" he demanded, though the edge in his voice had softened. Jordan hesitated, his lips trembling. Jordan Carter." The radio crackled. And then Captain Carter's voice thundered through so loud that even the bystanders froze. "You let him go, now!" The officers exchanged a horrified glance. Their grips loosened instantly, as if Jordan's skin had turned to fire. They stepped back, suddenly unsure, their confidence cracking under the weight of their captain's fury. The crowd erupted. In whispers, "Carter? Did he say Carter?" Phones zoomed in closer. People who had been ready to condemn now leaned forward, sensing a twist they hadn't expected. Within minutes, the automatic doors of the mall slid open with a hiss, and in stormed Captain Marcus Carter himself. He wasn't just a man, he was a presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, his navy uniform sharp and adorned with medals that spoke of decades of service. His boots pounded against the floor with purpose, every stride radiating authority. People parted instinctively, as though a wave of silence followed in his wake. His eyes scanned the scene, and when they landed on his son, disheveled, frightened, cheeks burning with shame, something inside him cracked. "Jordan," he breathed, striding forward. "Dad." Jordan's voice was barely a whisper, choked with relief and humiliation all at once. Captain Carter turned, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like stone. His gaze locked on the two officers, and in that moment, neither of them looked like men in uniform. They looked like boys who had just been caught doing something unforgivable. "Which one of you put your hands on my son?" His voice was a growl, low but lethal. The taller officer swallowed hard. "Captain, he matched the description." "Matched the description?" Captain Carter roared, his voice shaking the glass walls of the mall. Shoppers flinched. "Did you check the facts? Did you question him? Did you even bother to think before you humiliated a child? In front of hundreds of people?" The shorter officer stammered, "Sir, the store clerk identified nothing but her own prejudice." Carter snapped. He stepped closer, his towering presence forcing the officers back. "Do you realize what you've done? You've treated my son like a criminal when all he wanted to do was buy his mother a gift. You've judged him not by his actions but by his skin." The crowd was silent now, the weight of the captain's words pressing down like a storm. Even the woman who had lost her purse shifted uncomfortably, realizing the assumptions that had spiraled into chaos. Captain Carter pulled Jordan gently to his side, placing a protective arm around him. His eyes softened only for his son. "Are you hurt?" Jordan shook his head, though his voice cracked. "Just embarrassed." Those words cut deeper than any wound. Embarrassed. A child who had done nothing wrong, reduced to shame by the very people sworn to protect him. Captain Carter turned back to the officers, his voice steel again. "Consider yourselves suspended. Effective immediately. I will deal with you at the station." The officers paled, nodding stiffly, their careers flashing before their eyes. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, another commotion broke out at the far end of the mall. Security guards emerged, dragging along a well-dressed man in a designer suit. In his hand, half hidden under his jacket, was the missing purse. "The real thief." Gasps swept the crowd. Some turned their cameras toward the scene. Others back toward Jordan, guilt flashing across their faces. They had all been so ready to believe the worst. Captain Carter's voice rang out, carrying across the entire mall. "You see? This is what happens when you judge by appearance instead of evidence. An innocent boy was humiliated today because of prejudice. This cannot and will not be tolerated." Jordan stood by his father, still trembling, but with a strange new sense of pride swelling in his chest. His father's voice was not just defending him, it was defending every child who had ever been wrongly accused, every person who had ever felt the sting of suspicion simply for existing. The cameras kept rolling, but now the story was no longer about a theft. It was about truth, about justice, about the moment an entire mall witnessed the line between power and prejudice and saw it crumble. As father and son walked out together, the crowd silently parted. Some bowed their heads, some whispered apologies, and others, their phones still recording, knew they had just captured something that would spread far beyond those walls. Jordan Carter had walked into the mall that day just wanting to buy a gift. Instead, he became the center of a story that would shake the city, and the world would never look at him the same way again. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share it, talk about it, and if you believe voices like Jordan's need to be heard, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. Together, we can turn stories into movements and movements into change.